Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about Pachita.
Pachita. Legendary Pachita.
Yeah, the Mexican healer. And I think there's a lot of
So much mystery.
mystery and a lot of kind of tall tales and legends.
Yeah, you hear all kinds of things.
Yeah, and so what's interesting is that we have a source today that's actually from her granddaughter.
Oh, wow. Firsthand.
Yeah, firsthand account. So
That's amazing.
it's kind of exciting to like get past all of that noise
Yeah.
and try to figure out like, well, what really happened?
Yeah, cut through some of the myths and legends and see, what her life was actually like.
Yeah, and so the granddaughter, Lily Ugalde, she did an interview recently,
Okay.
and she talked about, Pachita's childhood and how her abilities emerged when she was very young.
How young were we talking?
Really young, like child prodigy young.
Yeah, like before 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and like, there's all these stories of her being able to like predict weather shifts.
Like sense illnesses in others.
Mm-hmm.
There's even a story about her helping an elephant give birth.
What an elephant.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, who knows if some of these stories were embellished over time, how these things can...
What, they're like a game of telephone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is really interesting to think about that in the context of like Mexican culture and, the history of folk healing there.
Right. It's so ingrained. Like there's such a rich tradition of folk healing and, curanderismo and all of that.
Yeah.
And like blending Catholicism with spiritualism.
Yeah.
And all these different practices.
Yeah. So it's like,
It's a fascinating blend.
yeah. And it makes you wonder, like, how did those beliefs and kind of this openness to the unexplained maybe shape Pachita's path?
Right. Because if you're in a culture that's more open to those kinds of things, I imagine it makes it easier to accept and explore.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of her path, like, to help her manage her abilities.
Okay.
Lily revealed that her family actually sent her to travel with a circus.
A circus. Yeah. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah. It wasn't as a performer or anything.
Oh.
It was more like they wanted her to learn and control her powers.
So like a mentorship kind of situation?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fascinating because it suggests that even within a family that might have been accepting of her gifts,
Right.
there was still this need for her to learn and understand and kind of manage them in a world that maybe wouldn't have understood.
Yeah, find someone who can relate to what she's going through
Exactly.
and guide her.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
And so then her life takes a pretty big turn when she moves to Mexico City and encounters the spirit of Cuauhtémoc.
Oh, wow. The last Aztec emperor?
Yeah, and that's when Cuauhtémoc starts working through her,
Wow.
which is fascinating.
That's a whole other level.
I know, and so this is where it gets a little bit,
Things get a little wild.
yeah, wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, according to Lily, this is like a key part of her healing practice.
Okay, so the spirit of Cuauhtémoc is like directly involved in the healing.
Yeah, yeah. And it brings in all this historical and spiritual depth to the story.
Right, because you have indigenous traditions, you have ancestral energies, you have this whole legacy of the Aztec Empire all kind of coming together.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, like, how do you think these influences might have shaped her methods?
Oh, that's such a good question because, when you think about the Aztec Empire and their practices and their beliefs, and then you blend that with this sort of spiritual healing energy, it's like a recipe for something really potent and potentially really transformative.
Yeah, yeah. And so Lily described this process of like Cuauhtémoc working through Pachita as being very intentional.
Okay.
Like Pachita would enter this deep meditative state.
Like a ritual.
Yeah, almost like a ritual to invite the spirit, and then the healing could occur.
That's interesting.
And it made me think about, other spiritual traditions around the world where they have spirit guides.
Oh, absolutely.
Or deities that they invoke
Yeah.
for healing.
Yeah, it's like this universal concept, right?
Yep.
This idea of calling upon a higher power for assistance and healing.
Yeah, it speaks to the power of like belief and intention.
Right. The belief of the healer and the belief of the person seeking healing.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It really is.
Yeah.
So let's address some of the more like out there claims.
Okay, get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, like the idea that she could conjure organs out of thin air.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a popular one.
And so what's interesting is Lily clarified that it wasn't quite like that.
Okay.
It wasn't like, poof, there's a kidney.
Right.
Like she didn't magically manifest organs.
Okay.
But what she did do is she used pork meat.
Pork meat.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she would mold it
mold it into
to resemble the organ.
like a model.
Yeah, a model
Okay.
during the healing.
Interesting. So it was more of a symbolic representation rather than an actual, like, magical manifestation.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's like a really important distinction.
Yeah, that changes things.
Because, when you think about it, like, okay, if she's not actually, like, pulling these things out of thin air,
Right.
what's really happening here?
What is the mechanism?
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
it points to something more symbolic and ritualistic.
Right. And that makes sense given the cultural context that we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
with the blend of Catholicism and spiritualism and indigenous traditions. Like, symbolism is a really big part of a lot of those practices.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes you think about, like, the role of symbolism in healing.
Yeah, because it's not unique to Pachita, right?
No, like even today, a lot of cultures use symbolic objects or actions as part of their healing.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder about the connection between those physical representations and what's happening on, like, an energetic or spiritual level.
Yeah, what's the relationship there?
Exactly.
Is it just a placebo effect, or is there something more to it?
Right. Is it about focusing intention? Is it about tapping into something deeper?
Right.
Like, what's the connection?
Yeah, and so it's worth noting that Lily emphasized that Pachita didn't just do these, like, symbolic surgeries.
Okay.
Like, she had all sorts of methods. She used herbal remedies, spiritual cleansings,
Okay.
and she really focused on the emotional and spiritual roots of illness.
So it was a very holistic approach.
Right.
It wasn't just about the physical symptoms.
Right, it was a whole person.
the whole package,
Yeah.
mind, body, spirit.
Yeah, and that actually aligns really well with what we see in modern healthcare now, this recognition that the mind, body, and spirit are all interconnected.
Right. And it's fascinating how Pachita was doing this decades ago. It's
Yeah.
like she was ahead of her time in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and so while Lily offered this really grounded perspective on her methods, she also had some surprising things to say about the accounts of researchers like Jacobo Grinberg.
Oh, yeah. Grinberg, he wrote a lot about Pachita.
Yeah.
But wasn't there some controversy surrounding his work?
Yeah, so this is where things get a little bit controversial because according to Lily, a lot of Grinberg's accounts, particularly the ones with, like, impossible feats, were embellished
Embellished to what extent are we talking?
to the extent that it makes you question, like, what was really going on.
Right. So was he exaggerating for dramatic effect, or was there something more to it?
Yeah, and Lily even alleges that some of the books that he published about Pachita weren't written until after her death.
Wait, so he was publishing things posthumously? That's strange.
Yeah, so it raises questions about, like, his motivations.
Right. Like, what was his agenda? Was he trying to capitalize on her legacy, or was he genuinely trying to share her story?
Yeah, and it reminds us that even researchers
Everyone has a perspective.
have their own perspective and potential biases.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's important to consider that when you're evaluating information.
Especially with something as controversial and, mysterious as Pachita.
Yeah, and so this leads us to Lily's own experiences with Pachita and her legacy.
Okay, so now we're getting into the granddaughter's perspective.
Yeah, and she claims to have personally witnessed Cuauhtémoc working through her grandmother.
Okay, so she saw it firsthand.
Yeah, and she gives these really vivid descriptions of his presence during the healings.
Wow.
But it goes even deeper than that because Lily also talks about her own encounters with Cuauhtémoc.
Her own encounters.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And she describes these, like, incredible accounts of astral traveling to ancient Tenochtitlan.
Wait, astral traveling to ancient Tenochtitlan,
Yeah.
like going back in time?
Yeah, basically.
Wow, that's mind-blowing.
And so she's, like, experiencing these historical moments.
So it's not just like a vision or a dream. She's actually, like, there.
Yeah, that's what she's describing.
That's
That
wild.
challenges everything we know about time and reality.
Right, it makes you question everything you thought you knew about how the world works.
Yeah, and so imagine the possibilities if we could access those lost perspectives, those historical moments, through these kinds of experiences.
Right, it would be like having a window into the past.
Yeah.
A first-hand account of history.
Yeah, and so while these experiences are subjective,
Okay.
they do align with research on altered states of consciousness.
Right, there's a whole field of study dedicated to these kinds of experiences.
Yeah, and some researchers believe that these experiences offer glimpses into hidden knowledge or alternative realities.
Yeah, the idea that there's more to reality than what we can perceive with our five senses.
Exactly.
That's a fascinating concept.
It really is. But before we get too carried away with the astral adventures,
Right, let's bring it back down to earth.
yeah, let's bring it back to Pachita's healing legacy
Okay.
and what Lily's experiences tell us about her impact.
Yeah, because ultimately that's what we're here to explore.
Right. And so what stands out to me is that Lily really emphasizes the holistic nature of Pachita's practice.
Okay.
The need to address not just the physical ailment, but also the emotional and spiritual imbalances.
Right. It's not just about treating the symptoms, it's about addressing the root cause, which often lies in the emotional and spiritual realms.
Yeah, so this echoes Pachita's earlier approach,
Hmm.
where she incorporated the herbal remedies, the spiritual cleansings,
Right.
and that focus on emotional and spiritual well-being.
So she was really a pioneer in that sense,
Yeah.
integrating all of these different modalities.
Yeah, and it's a perspective that really resonates with ancient wisdom traditions and modern integrative medicine alike.
Right. It's this timeless wisdom that's been passed down through generations.
Yeah, it reminds us that healing is this multifaceted process.
Multifaceted, multi-layered.
Yeah, that extends beyond just the physical realm.
Absolutely.
It's the whole person.
The whole being.
Yeah, and it's a powerful message that resonates even today.
Absolutely.
True well-being involves caring for ourselves on all levels.
Right. Mind, body, spirit, all interconnected.
Yeah, and that's just the beginning of our deep dive into Pachita's world.
Oh, there's so much more to uncover.
There's so much more.
Yeah, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
So stay tuned.
It's fascinating to see how Pachita's methods were so in tune with this understanding of interconnectedness even decades ago.
Yeah, and speaking of challenging conventional thinking,
Okay.
Lily also shed some light on a topic that often surrounds healers, the financial aspect.
Ah, the money question.
Yeah, there's this misconception that she only provided her services for free.
Right, like a purely charitable endeavor.
Yeah, okay. But according to Lily, that wasn't entirely accurate.
So there's more to the story.
Yeah, she explained that while Pachita certainly helped those in need, regardless of their ability to pay, she also recognized the energetic exchange inherent in healing work.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the physical act of healing, but the energy and the intention behind it.
Yeah, the time, the effort, the very essence of her being poured into each session.
Right. It takes a toll.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself out there.
And all of that held value both for her and for the recipient.
That makes a lot of sense. We often forget that healers, like any skilled practitioners, deserve to be compensated for their expertise and
Sure.
the energy they invest in their work.
Yeah, it's a reminder that healing work is a service, and those who dedicate their lives to helping others deserve to be supported, just like any other profession.
Absolutely.
It's about respecting the value of that exchange.
Right.
So Pachita's legacy is complex,
Yeah.
filled with these incredible feats and these contentious claims.
Right. It's a mixed bag.
Yeah,
For sure.
but one thing is clear. She left an undeniable mark on those who encountered her.
Absolutely.
And what's remarkable is that her influence continues to ripple outward,
Oh,
not just through the stories and the debates,
right.
but through Lily's ongoing work.
So the legacy lives on.
Yeah, just as Quatemoc worked through, Pachita Lily now carries the torch,
Wow.
channeling the spirit and continuing that lineage of healing.
That's powerful.
Yeah, and this lineage, according to Lily, is quite specific.
Oh, how so?
Quatemoc, when working through Pachita, declared that there would be 10 generations of healers in her family.
10 generations.
Yeah,
Wow, that's a long line.
I know, and it alternates between male and female descendants.
So it's like a preordained path.
Yeah, passed down through the generations.
That's incredible, and it's not uncommon. This idea of an inherited spiritual lineage is found in many cultures. You see it in shamanic traditions and indigenous cultures all over the world.
Yeah, it's like this passing down of specific gifts or responsibilities within families.
Right, and there are often rituals or initiations involved
Yeah.
to ensure the continuity of the practice.
Wow, that's quite a legacy to carry.
Yeah,
It makes you think about the responsibility and the immense potential
absolutely.
that comes with inheriting such a gift.
Right, because it's not just a gift, it's a responsibility.
Yeah, and Lily's journey wasn't without its challenges.
Okay.
She revealed that she initially resisted embracing this path.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, she struggled with the weight of her inheritance.
It's understandable. When you think about it, imagine the pressure to live up to the expectations of those who came before you.
Yeah, and to navigate the complexities of such a unique path.
Right, because it's not a normal life.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that even those born into these lineages of spiritual practice
Right.
have their own individual journeys.
Absolutely, their own struggles and triumphs.
Yeah, and ultimately their own choices to make about how they embody that inheritance.
Yeah, it's about finding your own way.
Yeah, in Lily's case, it seems those choices led her to embrace her gift,
Okay.
to step into her role as a healer
Mm.
and find her own way of carrying on the work that Pachita began.
So she's honoring the traditions
Yeah.
while also making them her own.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
And it speaks to the dynamic nature of these traditions.
Right. They're not static or rigid.
They're living and evolving.
Yeah. They adapt to the changing needs of individuals and communities.
Think of it like a river.
Okay.
The source remains the same, but the current flows and changes, carving new pathways over time.
Ah, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's so apt.
And just as a river brings life to the land it flows through,
Right.
so too do these evolving traditions bring healing and transformation to those they touch.
And, for someone who might be skeptical about all of this,
Yeah.
there's something profoundly moving about that idea. The idea that a lineage of healing born from this blend of indigenous wisdom and ancestral energy continues to touch lives today.
It really makes you wonder about those hidden currents that connect us across time
Yeah,
and the enduring power of the human spirit to seek healing and transformation.
absolutely.
And speaking of mysteries, Lily's experiences with astral travel opened up a whole other dimension to this story.
Oh, yeah, let's dive into that.
Because she doesn't just describe passively observing the past.
Okay.
She claims to actually interact with the environment and even encounter her grandmother in this alternate reality.
Wait, she sees Pachita in these astral journeys.
Yeah.
That's incredible, but also a little spooky. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely out there.
It challenges our conventional notions of time and space.
Yeah, suggesting a level of interconnectedness that defies our everyday understanding.
It makes you wonder if there's a collective unconscious or a field of information that transcends our linear perception of time.
Like, what if these experiences offer glimpses into another reality?
Yeah.
A realm beyond our physical senses, where past, present, and future might coexist.
What if time isn't linear at all,
Right.
but more like a spiral or a circle?
Yeah. And what could we learn if we could tap into that knowledge?
Those are questions that have fascinated humans for centuries.
Yeah.
And while we may not have all the answers, the exploration of these possibilities expands our awareness
Right.
and encourages us to question the limits of what we believe to be true.
But Lily's astral journeys aren't just about historical sightseeing.
Okay.
She describes these experiences as vital to her own well-being.
So it's not just about curiosity.
Yeah. Almost like a spiritual recharge.
That's it. And it speaks to the potential therapeutic benefits of these altered states of consciousness.
Right. Some studies suggest that practices like meditation or guided imagery can induce states where individuals access deeper levels of awareness.
Yeah.
And that can facilitate emotional healing, stress reduction, even physical health improvements.
So it's not just about seeing cool historical stuff. It's about this profound connection to her ancestral heritage.
Right.
And a source of energy and healing for Lily herself.
It highlights the interconnectedness of our physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being,
Yeah.
suggesting that practices that nourish one aspect can have ripple effects on others, contributing to a more holistic sense of health and vitality.
It's like those practices are a bridge,
Okay.
connecting her to something larger than herself,
Right.
to this lineage of healing,
Yeah.
and ultimately to a deeper understanding of her own place in the world.
And that perhaps is one of the most valuable lessons we can glean from Pachita's legacy.
Okay.
The recognition that healing is a journey, not just a destination. By embracing the interconnectedness of our being, exploring the depths of our consciousness, and honoring the wisdom of those who came before us,
Yeah.
we can unlock profound potential for transformation within ourselves and in the world around us.
And for all the controversies surrounding Pachita,
Right.
there's something incredibly hopeful about that message.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even amidst the challenges and uncertainties of life, the quest for healing, for connection, for something greater than ourselves, continues to drive us forward.
It's a universal human desire to
Yeah.
seek meaning and purpose and connection.
Yeah, it inspires us to seek new possibilities
Right.
and embrace the mysteries that lie beyond the boundaries of our everyday perception.
To push the limits of what we think we know.
Yeah, but before we get lost in the mysteries of the cosmos,
Okay.
let's bring it back down to Earth for a moment
Ground ourselves back to reality.
and talk about what this all means for you and your own journey.
Yeah, it reminds us that even with these extraordinary experiences, it's still about personal growth,
Yeah.
about resilience, about finding your own way to connect with something bigger than yourself.
And it strikes me that Lily's journey is kind of a reflection of like a broader truth about healing in general.
In what way?
Like, it's not always a linear path.
Oh,
You know,
absolute
it's
that.
not one size fits all.
No, it's about honoring those traditions, but also allowing for individual expression and evolution. Like
Yeah.
Lily's story reminds us that these practices are meant to be adapted
Yeah.
and integrated into our lives in ways that feel authentic to us.
Yeah, it's like finding your own unique rhythm within the music, right?
I love
You're
that.
still playing the same song, but you're adding your own little flair.
Your own interpretation, your own personal touch.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's where the real magic happens, when we can blend that ancient wisdom with our own experiences and insights.
Yeah, so as we wrap up our deep dive into Pachita's world, what are some key takeaways that we can apply to our own lives?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to stay open to the possibility that there's more to reality than meets the eye.
Yeah.
Pachita's story, even with all the controversies and embellishments, it really encourages us to explore those unseen realms
Yeah.
and consider those alternative ways of understanding healing and consciousness.
Right. It's about cultivating that sense of curiosity and wonder,
Absolutely.
but also staying grounded
Right.
and discerning, right? Like not blindly accepting everything we hear, but also not dismissing things outright just because they challenge what we currently understand.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance.
Yeah. And another crucial takeaway is the mind-body-spirit connection.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Pachita's holistic approach and Lily's emphasis on that connection reminds us that true well-being involves taking care of ourselves on all levels.
Right. It's not just about treating the physical symptoms.
Right.
It's about addressing the emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects of our being.
It's recognizing that we're not just a collection of parts,
Right.
but we're an integrated whole.
We're a whole system
Yeah.
working together.
Yeah. And finally, I think Pachita's story really highlights the power of belief and intention.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it's belief in a spirit guide, the intention behind a healing ritual, or simply the trust in our own inner healer,
Yeah,
those beliefs can have a profound impact
they really can.
on our well-being.
It's a reminder that we have more agency than we often realize.
Yeah.
Our thoughts, our beliefs, our intentions, they all play a role in shaping our reality.
So as you continue to explore these themes, remember to approach the information with an open mind,
Yes.
a critical eye, and a compassionate heart.
Beautifully said.
Trust your own intuition and allow yourself to be guided by what resonates with your own truth.
That's the most important thing.
And with that, our deep dive into Pachita's legacy comes to an end.
It's been a journey.
It has. We hope this has sparked your curiosity,
Yes.
challenged your assumptions, and inspired you to explore these mysteries of healing and consciousness further.
Absolutely. Keep exploring. Keep learning.
Remember, the journey doesn't end here.
That's right.
Keep asking questions, keep seeking knowledge, and keep trusting that transformative power that lies within you.
Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.